My first memories with the 47 Carnival. Yeah. I remember bits and pieces of that. And most of my memories start as an 8 or 9 year old. Of course, in those days when I went to the club, as I mentioned there, that all the clubs, all the races were started from the club. And they were started on up at the deck there, and they had that big clock that went for a minute, and then a bell rang.
Oh, okay.
And there was a handicap. It was a handicap start, and the handicap had one of those folding, you know, the numbers on them. And if you're on 20 minutes, you went on the fall of the 20. The scratch boat went on the fall of scratch. And my job was to flick those over.
As a little kid.
And Colt Taylor was the starter. Ballooners and spinnaker. They used to wool them. And of course you'd start with the reach out to foam. They weren't allowed to break them until the fall of the number, because they used to wool them and put them up. Well, that was the job of the forward handle. The second, they'd have to wool the extras before them.
So,
well, then of course they started the flying start. So the starts halfway down to quads. I took them just out of the club. It was only about 200, 300 metres from the club buoy. They started the flying starts, and Arthur Kilburn's boat was used, and they put a marker down, but they didn't have time to sort out. There were too many boats reaching the club buoy at the same time, so that's when they went further down to quarries.
Oh, okay.
They had to stay away from quarries because the 14-footers were coming up they were down on Perth foreshore. And they used to come up and start around about the quarries. Many times I'd go down by boat and they wouldn't want me, so I'd have to jump over and swim to the shore and get a lift back to the club, because there were 5 in the crew then. I was, and some days I'd have to get a lift down. They needed me. I'd have to swim out and jump in the boat.
So who would give you a lift? Is it one of the members?
Oh, they were all the time. Well, they were starting down there. So there's always they were starting from the shore originally. Occasionally they had to start from the shore because Arthur Kilburn's boat wasn't available. And of course, when they got their first Mercy boat, that became the official starting boat.
So did you swim then to the start boat?
Oh yes, but,
so you could get a bit of a crowd on the start boat.
But it was a lot of fun, you know. That's the days. But it was a lot of fun. But you're on demand some days, and other days they didn't want you.
The Venturi, the training, the self-training?
I don't know, but it was actually Rolly Tasker. Rolly, whether he invented it or whether he got it from somewhere, I don't know. But Jack and Rolly were pretty good mates. And we tried it out. I remember the first day we tried it out. It was gurgling like mad. It was an old, funny shaped one, not like the modern ones. We used to cover it up with a bag when we took the boat out of the water so nobody else would see it. It was something that Rolly had, said to Jack, we don't want this out just yet.
Did it have a flap on it like?
No, it was like a torpedo. It had a big opening at the front, narrowed, so the water could run through there, and then went out at the back. It was a shape like that. And that was the first one, and then they became flat. And they were a bit more efficient, water coming through. And that was, that was the first Venturi. And of course, you couldn't keep it secret for very long.
You used to go down to the club with your dad anyway, didn't you?
Yes, I used to go every weekend. He sailed with Ted Howes and Aggressor. They built Aggressor after the war. And, sorry, Valor, not Aggressor. Aggressor was a later boat. I remember Valor being launched. And the sailing in Valor, he was forward hand on Valor. And that through that period. But when we built the VJ, they were worried about not getting people into skiffs. They didn't have a junior class. And so the club were talking about it. they looked at the cadet dinghy, which was sailed from Freshwater Bay, and that was very similar to the Skiff, you know, and looked as though it was an ideal boat. But the VJ was sailed, quite a few clubs were sailing the VJ in WA. And Mel Peacock, who sailed wings, 16-foot skiff wings, Mel he held the Australian VJ Championship. And I don't know whether that was an influence or not, but they accepted the VJ. And as soon as they did that, Dad started to build me one. And they built on the club, they extended the club next to Billy Green where Eldora was kept on the slipway. And they extended that there with racks, built a junior room. I launched from Ted Howell's place, we launched the VJ, and Dad and I sailed it over to Mounts Bay, and there it stayed until we got rid of it. We lived in South Perth. He built it up in the back shed. I saw it being built frame by frame, and Liz Tomlinson, who was sailed the 14-footers, he had a frame that he built one for his son, and we got the frame from him, and I had the boat. Of course I couldn't sail it, so Dad approached Norm to teach me to sail it. I was the crew. I remember a few days when it got a bit hard, I developed a little bit of an injury. I was finding it a bit difficult at that age, and the real hard blow. I think I was a bit of a thorn in poor old Norm's side, but it didn't take me long. It was a few, only a matter of weeks before I was quite happy with things, and he was a great teacher. We used to sail the same course as the Skiffs, except that we didn't go up to Dunmark. We used to go to Deepwater. Deepwater Spit. Yeah. Just cut the course back a bit.
Not very much.
But first race we couldn't use any extras. I couldn't put extras up. I was only 10 years of age. Ran second to Mel in Seaby. So Mel Peacock. Yeah, I remember that one. And Norm was a couple of years, and then I took the boat over, I sailed it. If it was a light day, I'd go and sail the VJ, and Jack, didn't want me. But then of course Nedlands came in. Garnet Rock, of course, was there. The boys, his son sailed Frisky, and Lance, the other son, sailed the VJ. But they had some good VJs there. They had Ross Ilbeck in Comet and Gaiety,
At Mounts Bay, you mean?
Yeah, quite a strong VJ fleet.
Yeah, we still had VJs at Mounts Bay at the same time as we were at Nedlands.
Didn't last long after that. Yeah. I don't think most of them went to Nedlands. But I'd moved into the to the Skiff then, and I was sailing. My interest was in with Jack. We used to go to every opening day. Fremantle Sailing Club, when it used to be just a hut on the other side of the road, and we went to all the opening days. But,
so would you sail down the river? You'd sail down the river too?
Yeah, we'd go to East Fremantle opening day. That was a shocking thing. You're coming back on the, up the wind from a sea breeze, you're going about every 30, 40 metres.
So it's a long day, isn't it? You sail all the way to the club, do the race.
Oh, yeah.
And then sail back to Mounts Bay again. Yeah.
Well, I did that to Mosman's for years. Yeah, sailed down. Used to be a shop there on the front where you buy a pie and sauce, and everybody had their pie and sauce and then raced and then went home.
Did the adults stop and have a couple of beers today?
At the club they did. There was no licence then. After the ladies had a committee, they had a room out the back, the ladies' committee, like a cafeteria. And after the race, everybody would go in and have a cup of tea and a scone or a cake. It was fantastic. And you'd be in your wet gear then. You just go straight in, after you put the boat away and have a cup of tea. That was all provided. There was no licence in the club then, but many a time they would, after a race, they drank for prawns, and they had a fire that they put up on the little bit of beach that they had.
Mm.
And I'd have prawns and a few beers, buy some beers. Other times I'd go to the Nedlands Hotel. I remember all those days.
Mm.
Very, very great club. Very,
Sociable.
very family-oriented club, and the kids were all involved.
Mm.
You could tell that by that shot of yours on Father Christmas coming, the day of Christmas.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
really a family club.
And the ladies serving the morning or afternoon.
That room became, when they applied for a licence, that became the first bar.
Ah.
Because I never sailed from the new club at all, except after I came back from the country with Bruce Glasgow and Norm Green for a while.
Mm.
That's my association with the new club.
Mm.
When I left it, still sailing with the old club,
Mm.
and they built that over the time that I was away. But no, that was the first bar at the back. They converted that. The ladies lost their afternoon tea room, and it became the bar for the men.
Was that very contentious at all?
I think it might have been.
Okay.
That was the direction things were going at that time.
Did they have like refrigeration there, or you just had like stuff on ice? Was it?
It went in for the bar,
Mm.
but Andy Shack, of course, General Electric were Holden, with his Holden, and he was able to. I think Andy was able to get a fridge for them when nobody else in those days you couldn't buy a fridge. You had to wait quite a while. And I think Andy was responsible for probably putting a fridge or two in to keep the beer cold. There was a door on the end. It was just like a normal door, not a roller door, just a door. That came into the club from the parking area. There was a little bit of grass out there when you're facing the club from the river on the right-hand side. There was nothing on the left because that was taken up by Eldora, Billy Green's slipway and that. And all the boats used to have to put them in the water from the ramp or lift over there was a wooden retaining wall.
Yeah.
And a high tide, it was not much beach at all. Low tide, you got a little bit of beach, but all the boats were all rigged in the water. You were standing in the water rigging them.
And also on the foreshore there was a jetty in some of the photos.
Yes.
The latter one,
Yeah, very small jetty.
I suppose you'd call
Yeah.
it.
I would imagine only half of it was in the water. It was only about knee deep at the end of it. It wasn't, you couldn't tie up to it or anything. I don't know really why it was there. Never saw it used for anything other than like used to, a lot of mussels used to grow on them, and people would pick those off occasionally. That's about all I ever saw the use of it. Well, the men's change rooms, they were just inside the door. They had the stairway that went upstairs to the top deck, and it was gaps in the floor. You know how you'd have gaps between the quite big boards, and those. Goodness knows what they would have found there. Where they pushed the clubhouse down, because people were always losing things down there. They couldn't get down to it. The old clubhouse, it certainly served its purpose. And of course, they built the tower. That was US Air Force, for the Catalinas. They used to use that as like a control tower. And when the Catalinas used to be there, I can remember the hangars. Of course, Royal Perth was also down on the foreshore at Perth. But I remember the hangars well. Well, the old club, of course, was built right on the foreshore, whereas the new club was built behind that.
Further back. Can you remember any of the flying boats coming in and out?
We lived in South Perth, and you could hear them, but I don't recall any coming in. I possibly did, but I don't
Yeah,
remember.
don't recall.
Yeah, my only experience with a flying boat was that we were sailing in a championship heat, the last heat of the Australian titles, 1959, 60, I think it was. I went over, I was down in Colledge, I went over with Jack. He asked me to go over and sail with him in that. I hadn't put my foot in the boat for 12 months until I got there.
So where was this? At Mount
in
Bay?
Sydney.
Oh, in Sydney.
In Sydney.
Okay.
And they had the Rose Bay boat coming in. And of course, midweek we were in the last heat of the championships, and we were second. We had to win it to win the title, and Kenny Minter was leading. Ken had to win it also. We were to windward, and Ken was well in front of us to leeward, and a flying boat came in. They used to send a boat out to get you to clear the course. They'd send a boat out and ask everybody to get out of the road. Well, Kenny wasn't going to shift, and we certainly weren't going to shift. And this boat came down between us.
Cool.
And Jack said, look, he said, I know what's going to happen here, but, you know, be prepared to, goodness know what happened. Came down between us, but there wasn't one, didn't disturb one bit of air. Yes,
Yeah.
It was amazing. But Ken beat us, won the championship. We were staying with him.
Oh.
we were staying with Ken at his home. Yeah, nice bloke, good bloke. Wonderful people. I mentioned in there, in that bit there about the last heat in Melbourne, and that will never ever erase from my memory. We had to win it, and it was blowing pretty hard at the start, but it turned into a horrific day. And we had sailed in the invitation race, and there was a groin, and the groin was protecting Brighton Yacht Club on Phillip Bay, Port Phillip Bay, and we were well in front, running down. It was finished from the top mark. We finished with the spinnaker under the finishing line, and we got a bit close to the groin, and we tipped in. And of course, those days there was no buoyancy, and so they towed us in and etc. But in the last heat, it blew like the hammers. We went around the top mark. We put up a ballooner, and we're running to the outside mark, and the boat that was supposed to show us where the mark was couldn't keep up with us. We were absolutely the fastest I've ever been. Wouldn't be fast now, but then it was
for those
very
days.
fast.
Yeah.
And we eventually found the mark, and we couldn't jibe on it. It was increasing, and the wind was and the waves were unbelievable. So anyway, we were in front. We were lucky. We came to the last mark, and it was a run to the finish. And we remembered what happened to us on the invitation race. So we tacked down, and Bill O'Hayward sailing O'Johnny. Bill O was in his 60s, which to me, as a 14-year-old, he was very old. And we tacked down, and Bill O came round and put a spinnaker up. And Dinky Di, I'd say there that I've never seen seamanship like it. How in the heck he ever carried a spinnaker down in those seas and that wind, trying to catch us. He had to win it to.
Okay.
He had it all out. We were fortunate enough to get there across the line quite comfortably, tacking down. But I'll never forget watching him. We just stopped and watched him coming down. We were celebrating because it was Jack's first title, but we had to stop and watch this bloke coming down.
It's screaming down.
Unbelievable.
Was it a small spinnaker or was it a normal one?
No, a normal spinnaker. But there were 24 of the best skippers in Australia start that heat. 4 finished.
Yeah, I remember reading about that.
And only most of them pulled out because they had nothing to gain. It was considered to be dangerous virtually.
Yeah, how windy you reckon it was? 25, 30 knots, something?
Oh, more than that.
And big seas.
Jack says in one, in that book, in the book that I had, I think the bottom, but he was saying the waves. They said we were in feet then. He was saying that the swell was about 30 feet. But it was choppy. You couldn't go about. You had to wait for a flat spot before you could go about.
Yeah, because it's dangerous. You can run into the back of the wave and then capsize.
It was survival. That's all it was.
Mm.
You couldn't, it was nothing like sailing, it was survival.
The things you learn.
We survived, luckily.
Yeah.
But he had to, those blokes that I was with were absolutely the best.
Yeah, I'll just pause this.
It's just one of those things that's, as I said, is part of my life. And this here, I was lucky enough to get asked. I was just lucky enough to be asked to sail with Jack. He could have asked anybody. Stack of blokes down at the club would have jumped at the opportunity. And
yeah, because you were only 14 then, wasn't it? That was 1954. Yeah.
1953. Well, I was so young, I used to call Jack Mr. Cassidy. Because I was always taught that how you're introduced to people is what you call them, and the kid, I was introduced to Mr. Cassidy long before I was asked to sail with him. Mr. Cassidy and his father, Pop Cassidy, so he was a great stalwart of the club.
So where did his dad used to sail as well, did he? Or?
No, he didn't sail. No, Jack was the first Cassidy that sailed. And of course, John and Lee, the kids, Lee was only a baby when I started. John was only a little bloke. But all the boats were built at Everett Street. I lived in Everett Street. And all the boats were built there. But we were very lucky because we had 2 masts for the big sail and the small sail. Most other boats only had 1 lot of gear. So it's a big advantage when you had that. We knew that it was, you had to have it to compete with the East Coast.
Which one was your predominant? Like in the sea breeze, you would probably put the small one up, would you?
Well, depend upon what it was like. You had a pretty good idea, much better than it is these days. You had some sort of an idea. It used to come in quite regularly at a similar time. But 172 foot was the big sail and 154 was the little one. Sometimes you'd have the small mast in and you'd have to pull it out and put the big one in, whereas a lot of the other boats, or most other boats, only had 1. So we had but we did. Jack was absolutely fanatic in adjusting the boat. I sailed it several times and used to have crew races and novice skippers, and he's so well balanced, a little bit of weather helm. But Jack we would go down to the quarries on a Sunday and come back up and down and up, and he'd be making adjustments just an inch at a time about the jib. And we had it all new. We knew what way the wind was going to be, exactly where it was. And I was learning all the time. And Johnny McDavitt was the sheet hand, and I took over from John when he left. So I took over from John. I knew I didn't have to learn anything.
So did Jack put little marks on the boat at all?
No, we had tracks and we had holes, of course, drilled. And we knew exactly which one. With the breeze, we knew exactly where that jib had to be. They hadn't got the sails they have now. And at the transom, at the old days of the horse, we used to have a track all the way across, which was adjusted. We'd be adjusted. The leash, everything was adjusted.
So
the foot of the sail.
The main sheet, did that come off the floor and then up to the boom?
That was, I didn't have any sort of blocks when I was there. It was just a snatch block. You were holding 172 square foot of sail. They're working your insides out. Because you worked the sail a lot in those days. And Harold Belinsky and the early ones, we had the first crew that I sailed with, Harold, his brother-in-law. Harold sailed up forward, he worked the jib. Jack worked sails, was never just held in. You were working on the wind, you were working them all the time, and off the wind you were working it all the time.
So there's no cleats of anything on the jib?
No, nothing was cleated, nothing was cleated. working the sail all the time.
Yeah.
And you can see that if I don't know whether it's in that video you can see, but you wouldn't just stand coming downwind. You weren't just holding onto it. They were working the mainsail and working the spinnaker. No, 3 was Melbourne, 4 was Perth, 5 was Brisbane, I think, and 6 was a chine boat, first chine boat.
Oh.
That a chap by the name of McClear from Queensland designed Jack's boats.
Okay.
And he said, I remember when we were there, he said to Jack, he said about a chine boat. And chine boat, skiff, and he said, look, he said, this will beat anything. He said, but you've got to keep it out of the water. He said, you get a chine in the water and you're gone. With a round boat you could push the water away, but you get your chine in, you're going to capsize. So that was, but just general talking. It doesn't mean to say every time, but you had to be careful. And he had a yarn with me and said, as sheet hand, the sheet hand is the one that's got to keep the boat out of the water. Because you did, if you didn't spill the wind on a heavy day, you used to go in anyway. But, and that was the first, but then they refined it, they got the angles right, played around with it, and Jack won the title in the, no, he got beat, we were beaten in the chine boat, but that was the start of them. Probably didn't sail as well as we should have.
Was there any buoyancy in that first chine boat?
Yeah, we had buoyancy tanks. The buoyancy tanks came in the year before, I think. I think we went to Sydney. The year we went to Sydney, we had buoyancy tanks which would hold the boat up while you bailed it. And we drove across because we always used to have to drive across. We didn't get much help in those days. And on the way over, you couldn't get anything on the radio while you're crossing the Nullarbor, but when we got to Adelaide, they said the sharks were the worst that they'd ever been in the harbour. And when we were there, we went down to the Darling Point Sailing Club, and Ronnie Gray was standing there, and Ronnie said, oh look, the chap was there throwing a stick out and his dog was going out and getting the stick. And it was just I only saw a swirl of water, but Ron saw the shark had taken the dog.
Oh, cool.
And that's okay, this happened, it was terrible. We went on. But anyway, the next day we capsized out at the Sow and Pigs in the middle of the harbour. And my job was bailing. The fellas had to jump over the side and their legs were dangling in the water. And all I could think of was sharks. So I'm bailing I was just trying, and they said, do you want a spill? And I said, no, there's no way I'd get to put my feet in the water. So that was the buoyancy tanks.
Yeah, that would have made the bail pretty quick.
Nobody was ever taken by a shark. I was a yachtsman, I don't think. Ever. The sailing club at Darling Point, in those days it was a clubhouse, and they had a ramp each side. And you put your water in, so they were actually out on the harbour. They were built, the clubhouse was built over the harbour, so the water was quite deep. So they used to rig their boats on the ramp and then push them into the water. No beach.
So when you're taking the boats over, you have a trailer, presumably. You must have been on a trailer, the boat.
They went by boat. Used to go to a crate. Put them into a crate. They'd go down, get loaded on the interstate ship, and they took them. So we wouldn't see the boat and would have to take it out of the crate when we get there. The first year we went by train. The club paid for the boat, and I think they paid our ticket for the train. They always paid for the boat to go, but we drove over Drove to, trained to Melbourne. We trained to Brisbane actually once. Drove a couple of times to Sydney.
Yeah, because there wasn't a trans train in those days, was there?
The train, we used to take the old West Rail, which had a sleeper, to Kalgoorlie, and then you had Kalgoorlie, there was a sleeper across there, but when you got over to the east coast you had to sit up all the way. It wasn't a very comfortable journey. We had to pay our own accommodation and everything, so it wasn't a cheap trip. And when Harold Linsky married, you can't afford, they couldn't afford to go. You know, and you had to, young chaps getting married, they were reasonably young, of course. You got to get your priorities right. So we had a few changes in the crew.
But, Jack had the same people for a few.
Well, Cole Sterling, he had for as long as I could remember. See, Cole was with him for 6 of those titles. Teddy took over the sheet from me when I went to the country, and Teddy McDavitt, he stayed for a long time. But we had only one change. Harold couldn't go I think Harold couldn't go to one of the carnivals with us. You know, just financially, wasn't cheap. And we took somebody in a foreign hand, but Jack, myself, and Cole Sterling were with him for 7 or 8 years.
Scott Glassman was saying that you stayed with his dad, Bruce, at one time, did you? With Bruce Glassman?
Yeah, I went teaching to the country. I came back and I sailed, I can't remember, I think I sailed with Bruce then for a couple of years in the theatre, and then I don't know why, but I sailed with Norm Green. I got married and had a family, and of course you've got to get your priorities right, and sailing wasn't the priority that it had been for all the years that I was with Jack. But Norm, I enjoyed that because it was on a Saturday, and Bruce was a great bloke to sail with. And Norm was just the opposite. Norm was very gentle, real good bloke, but a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
And that's is the essence, isn't it? You enjoy your time there and that.
No pressure. You're under a bit of pressure with Jack because when I say pressure, don't get me wrong there, because it's just that the expectation to do well is there, and he was unbelievable the way he set boats up. A lot of people don't know, but James H, we were in, it might have been Sydney, couldn't win a title in Sydney. James H just scraped into the top team in New South Wales, where it was very competitive to be in the team. And Jack helped him, went out with him and set his boat up for him. And James H beat us by 4 boat lengths to win the Australian title that year. And this is the type of chap that Jack Cassidy was.
But it helps the whole sailing scene, doesn't it?
Oh, he gave his time, but he was a perfectionist in the boat, and as a bike rider too, he was a pretty good bike rider. He won a Beverley to Perth. The same thing, the boat, everything was, it was just easy.
Saying in the past that you used to practice during the week, was that often?
No, not during the week, sometimes during the week, but we used to, where there were no races on a Sunday, even in the morning, we would go down to quarries and be setting up the sails on the wind, because on the wind is the one where you needed to set it up perfectly. And adjustment was made, we'd go back down and back up, and that was, you're not going to reach the top unless you do those. We did that, and it used to be pretty boring, because I was the other end of the boat and they were up there making these adjustments. But you know, it was a wonderful. They were years, and I was very lucky that I was lucky enough to join such a fantastic crew.
In the right place at the right time, isn't it?
Yeah. He asked my father if I'd be interested. Didn't approach me, of course. And you know, it was a bit of a gamble.
But yeah, he could see the qualities in you, obviously. So those type of boats, did they have a metal centreboard that someone's job was to put the board up and down?
That's my job.
Yeah, okay.
When I was in the boat, if it wasn't, it was up to the second hand to do it. Everybody had a specific job.
Was it pretty heavy to put up and down though, was it, the board? Yeah. The centre plate?
Yeah, we used to, it was, and depending upon, again, they went, when we first started, they were iron. And then they went to Dural. And they were big, very big and heavy in the old days, and the Dural were light when they became more like a dagger. They were, our centre plate was different from the others. You know, Jack, even the centre plate was adjusted. It was even back, aft, forward and aft, it would be adjusted depending upon the wind. And the angle, it would be lifted maybe 2 holes on the wind, because Jack can feel the balance on the tiller. And what he was looking for was just a little bit of weather help. And he knew what he wanted, and we'd be adjusting things in the boat, and that's the way that we sailed the boat. Not just sit on there and go around the course. It just didn't happen.
That's why I asked the question, was that about it, because I heard some stories about the weight of it and that, So,
but they're the things that he did, and that's why he was so successful. Raleigh was doing the same thing in the Sharpies.
There's a photo there somewhere, and they swapped boats on some particular day.
They did. I sailed. We came back from, I don't know when it was now. It's in there, and we came back, and Jack invited him to sail the Skiff. I don't know, and I worked the mainsail, so I sat next to Raleigh. I don't know whether he made the boat go any faster, but it was quite an experience sailing with him.
Well, different shape boat.
He came into the boat, he hadn't sailed it before, so we certainly weren't making those little adjustments that Jack used to make all the time. But it was quite an experience. We still did very well. I think we got time, you know. And you know the story on the Cock of the Swan. You know, he'd won the championship in the heavyweight Sharpie, and we'd won it in the Skiff. And Thea was the biggest boat on the river then with Bill Lucas. So they decided, I don't know who decided, I don't know what club ran it, but they decided on the Cock of the Swan. And away we went, and we were with them at the top mark, but we couldn't compete with them coming downwind. Not with Thera, you know, he put his finger up big boat, but we were third. Oh, it was something, you know. It was just you just enjoy being out on the river sailing.
Yeah. Did you go in any more of those Cock of the Swan?
Oh yes, yeah. We had, we sailed a few of them. I'm not sure if it was the second or the third one, but the first multi-hull boat was built out of ply. I can't remember the name of the chap that built it, but he built this big heavy, you know, catamaran, and he couldn't sail against anybody because there was no other catamaran available. So he got permission to not to start in the Cock of the Swan, but he started behind us, about a minute behind us. And we were still going up on the wind when he came. He was running home. It was acceleration. He beat everybody by a mile. Well, that was, we were staggered by the acceleration. I mean, he passed us before we even got to the club mark. He'd gone past us and everybody else.
Did they celebrate, have their presentations afterwards?
Well, no, I don't think. I think it was just, there was no trophy. There was nothing. It was just raced off to see who was the quickest, and we all went back to our respective clubs, and that was it. But it didn't have any great recognition. I think it was no, it's not like it is now.
Yeah, it was a good write-up in the paper, and you've got it in that collection.
Yeah, yes, it was. Well, Mike Russell, as I said to you, Mike used to write for the Daily News, and Mike used to write a column, quite a bit in there on that, of his column, little snippets here and there, and I think Mike wrote that. He was into a sailing.
So he would come down and watch the events.
Oh
and
yes,
such like, yeah.
yes, yeah.
So that was very hands-on reporting.
It was hands-on reporting.
Yeah.
It wasn't a big sport, you know, in those days. That was the local football and cricket, you know, the main sports people participated in and watched. But sailing got bigger, you know, it's over the years. South Perth Yacht Club used to be a little mission hut on the other side of the river. That was, you know, South Perth started that way. Look at it now, you know. South Perth, Molands, of course, hasn't had the chance to expand. Terry Corner, of course, you know Terry. I knew Terry well in those days. Royal Perth were down on the river and on the foreshore,
in the city.
And they shifted up to Pelican Point. That was a big move. Fremantle Sailing Club was a mission hut on the other side of the road. You know, so the development there is, it's a great sport.
Yeah,
Great sport. My kids all sailed, my son and the girls.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They sailed from Royal Perth in Pelicans. I wasn't lost to the sport for a while. I sailed on a Thunderbird with John Wager. And John was asked me to come out one day and have a sail, and I finished up having a few years with John. But John used to start a bit up behind the fleet, you know. He wasn't that competitive in those days, and I had to get him up to it. I was used to a bit more than that, but it was good fun, and sailed there for a while. But the kids all sailed Pelicans from there, the girls, and Ken won a state title.
Oh, that's all right.
My son, and you know, so I wasn't lost to it. I was at that association for a while. It kept going, and now I go to bowls, and I drive down to North Beach there, down the beach, and I see them out there from the Hillary's Yacht Club, and I think, gee, it'd be nice to be out there. But nothing will ever replace this sailing.
Yeah, the sailing. Oh, yeah, I think too. It's something you do in your younger years, so to speak.
It's just such a huge part of my life early on. And I'll just realise just how lucky I was that I was with 4 fantastic blokes.